I read Piper Kerman's Orange is the New Black, My Year in Women's Prison. This was her memoir that exposed everything wrong with the prison system, and she used it to educate the public on what life is like behind bars. She brought light to some important issues that are not regularly depicted in the media that are important for people to know. Three of these issues are sexual abuse by prison guards, stereotypes and racism in the system, and how the system fails inmates by not preparing them for life outside as a free citizen. The first issue is sexual abuse in prison. Guards regularly harass and abuse inmates in a sexual manner, yet endure no consequences for their actions due to their position of power and the abuse of power they have over the inmates. On page 101, Kerman states that clearly sex and power were inseparable behind prison walls. Also, many inmates told her when she was a new arrival that it would be her word against theirs, and that there was usually only negative outcomes for any prisoner that came forward about abuse. The next issue was stereotypes and racism in the prison system. These two issues were made clear from the very beginning of Piper's sentence. As soon as she stepped foot in the prison ground, she was given weird looks by guards and prisoners alike. Guards gave Piper certain privileges that other prisoners didn't get, and many asked her questions like, "What the are you doing here? We don't see women like you much." Also, when Martha Stewart was convicted, it was a prime example of racism and inequality in the system, because she was sentenced to only 5 months in prison for similar crimes as women who were in Danbury with Piper for years, simply because there were obstacles they had to face that she didn't. Lastly, the prison system fails its inmates by not preparing them for the outside world. On page 217, Piper states that nothing about the daily workings of the prison system focuses its inhabitants' attention on what life back on the outside as a free citizen will be like. Prisoners are not taught how to live outside of prison, and they are not prepared for the real world. Many prisoners have never had a mainstream job or their own home, and they are tossed into the real world without any genuine preparations. Due to this lack of education, most freed prisoners end up back in prison in their lifetime. Throughout reading the novel, I felt two main emotions: shock and disgust. When I learned about that prisoners were expected to buy necessities such as soap, toothpaste, and toothbrushes on a base pay of 14 cents an hour, I was in disbelief. How could someone be expected to buy things like this when they were making next to nothing? It got me thinking about how I would complain about my $10.30 an hour paying job, and how I will never complain about my pay ever again. Also, I felt disgusted and disappointed in the system after reading some things in the book. First off, when Piper stated that a female prisoner who alleges sexual misconduct on the part of a guard is invariably locked in the SHU, which is solitary confinement, for protective custody, on page 407. This made me sick and so confused as to why the victim of such abuse would be punished more than the abuser. Why would people in power be so willing to turn a blind eye to such abuse? Also, I was disgusted when I learned that the OBGYN at an all-women's prison was a man, and for this reason many women opted out of their yearly checkups. This is a very important doctor visit for many women, and the fact that people in charge of the prison couldn't even bother to ensure that women inmates would be comfortable with this checkup made me sick. As I was saying before when I was talking about prison stereotypes, Piper Kerman went against them in every aspect. If one were to compare her to the average prisoner, she had many advantages that they did not, like a job and a home waiting for her when she got out. Although she had these advantages, she was still enraged at how the system did nothing to provide for the majority of the women in the prison. On page 430, it was made clear how different Piper was than the majority of her fellow inmates when she and the other women who were being released soon had to go through exiting classes. There were women who lost their parental rights and would have to battle to reunite with their children, women who had nowhere to go and would be heading to homeless shelters, women who had never worked in the mainstream economy. I had none of these concerns, but I felt disrespected by how trivial these classes were turning out to be. I had two main takeaways from reading this book. People's viewpoints and beliefs aren't forever, and they mature with them, and that you are never alone in any situation. On page 471, Kerman stated, "Most changes in perceptions are gradual. We grow to hate or love an idea, a person, or a place over a period of time. This helped me to realize that not all your beliefs have to stay the same your whole life, and that as you grow as a person, so will your opinion." Piper Kerman also taught me that no matter how much it may feel, you are never alone. Piper stated on page 503 that as a teen and into her adult years, she thought that being alone and self-reliant was the only way to be strong. But her experience in prison and all the women there taught her that you don't have to be alone to be strong, and that even when you feel alone, there is always someone who understands you.